I had been walking the tracks for miles now. It was early evening, the sun glinting off what little rusted metal was left between the rotting wood planks. My old leather boots clanked against the railing. You always told me about this place, how even after decades of abandonment, trains can still be heard in this line. No one believed you back then. I'm still trying to believe you now. But it was never about truth with you, at least not for me. I remember moving into this small town. Parents went where the jobs did, and the kids got to follow. I wanted to move away as soon as I set foot in the sad plaza of the town square. There weren't many shops then, still aren't now, although the liquor store is now a vape shop. There's no lighthouse, still in use. A run-down golf course complete with chintzy decorations. Then there was the brick cube with barely any windows they called a school. I remember I hated everyone there. I didn't want friends if I was going to move again soon enough. But you didn't give me a choice. You talked to or at everyone in earshot, going on about your crackpot theories. You always had a wild look in your eye, an intense stare that demanded equal attention. Most people couldn't keep up, didn't even try. You were alone a lot, but didn't let it show. Then one day, you came for me, and started talking about the mini golf course that was hiding bodies under the windmills. And whether it was through stubbornness or caution, I listened. I didn't respond, but you just wanted an ear. Soon enough, we kept meeting in the halls, you aggressively sharing even more stories. I was interested. Not just in the wild tales, but in just how someone can come up with all this. One night, I surprised you. I threw rocks at your window around 10 p.m. and got you to come downstairs, sleep still in your eyes. And I told you I had a key to the golf course back door. Your eyes lit up and you grabbed your dad's camera. We ran to the dark course and sneaked into the back, making sure to avoid any possible cameras. I dug and you held the flashlight. Both of us were shocked to find an actual corpse there. I mean, you said you knew, but it wouldn't be so easy to find. You thought there would have been bones by now, and here we were staring at one that was maybe a week old tops. We took a bunch of pictures and left several copies in front of the police station. Next day, the golf course was mysteriously shut down. Word spread pretty fast, and not everyone in town was happy about it. They couldn't pin us for that, but whatever. But it was a real victory for us. Well, for you, the most. It proved you were right, and from then on, we kept on looking into things. A few months later, I picked the lock on the old inn. You had an old video camera that barely worked, but it was something you treasured. There were a few guards on the ground floor, so we moved quickly. Down a few flights of steps, there was a big locked metal door. No spot for a key. I put my ear against it and couldn't hear anything, but I could smell booze, whiskey, and bourbon. I tried prying the door open with an old screwdriver, but no luck, not even a scratch. You pulled me away as footsteps started above us, getting louder. We hid under the steps as two people opened the door and headed inside. I caught it quietly and let you get some recordings. Big caskets of booze and bottles. Could have been a speakeasy if they wanted. Probably was. We left the recordings at, yet again, the police station door, and a note with the inn's address. No one was arrested, but the inn was mysteriously boarded up. There wasn't too much to find after a while, especially after we graduated. You stuck around, but I left for yet another school and another city. I made it a point to write to you, though, and how I went to the police academy. You wrote about starting your own paper in town. How about reporting on the secret you found? You wouldn't say it, but I could tell it didn't sell very well, if at all. Those letters had one lead for me to follow, though. You kept mentioning an old story from our school days you could never prove, about how the old train tracks were still in use. People kept telling you the tracks were too old and rusted, too broken to be functional. But you kept looking and kept that story alive, until your very last letter. You said you had a job for me. You knew I was a PI by now and could check in your case. The case of the train no one believed in, so I went back to that small town and to the apartment you stayed in. I knocked, but you never answered. I looked under the doormat and found a key there, which happened to fit your lock. You think I'd figure out why people, you included, did this old trick, but I don't know to this day. Old habits, I guess. Your place was messy, which wasn't surprising. No offense. Your kitchen had dishes scattered and old food left on the counter. I didn't care about any of that. What I saw there was a paper collage more complicated than my paperwork drawer or desk. Walls lined with pinned writings and articles, some of which were covered in large marker strokes. The desk was an extension of the wall at best and just as cluttered, but on top of all the papers was a journal with a bookmark neatly tucked in the near back pages. I opened to the entry. You kept a diary of all the things we did and lots of your own thoughts. I got a good look into your head that night, and honestly it's still a lot to process. The last part of the entry mentioned going to the tracks one more time before I can't anymore. I didn't see anything about sickness or health problems, no receipts or doctor's notes. I took the journal and asked the oldest people in town where you went. No one knew much except you disappeared one day. You weren't sick or dying, you just vanished. I wandered the town for days and burned through a lot of cigarettes before I finally gave up and headed down to the old train tracks. I kept flipping through your journal, looking for any clues. Maybe you had a secret hideout here, away from the town and the people, in your own little world. But the only thing I found along the tracks was an equally old train platform with some benches still standing. I sat on one of the benches and let my mind try to settle. It was late evening by the time I got up again. A light shone at the far end of the track and was coming slowly closer. I thought it was someone in town coming to find me in case I was lost. I sighed and stood up, prepared to put this all behind me, but then I noticed I heard no footsteps or anyone calling out, and then I saw the smoke wafting lazily under and behind the light, but no smell of burning wood or coal, and then I saw the train. I should say I saw through the train. The outline of the engine was glowing light blue, the metal a darker shade. There was a misty motor-like shape somewhere in the middle. I watched it chug silently by with no one in the compartment. After that was the passenger cars, each one mostly empty. The seats looked like faded leather on an oak frame. The people in the seats never looked at me or even outside, just straight ahead or at something they were reading. Except for one. I saw an outstretched hand waving frantically a few cars down. I saw your face, smiling that ridiculous smile. I didn't know what to say or what to do except to reach out and grab your hand. If I could even do that. You were made of the same see-through stuff as the train. As you passed, I felt your hand grab mine in a firm and enthusiastic shake. You looked right at me, practically through me. You were saying something, but I couldn't hear any words. But you looked happy, giving me a thumbs up as the car and you passed. I stared as the rest of the train went on, only finding the sense to walk along the platform as the last car pulled away. I stopped at the edge of the old wood, seeing the last of the caboose disappear to the mist. In my hand was a crumpled paper. It was a letter for me. No date, but it couldn't have been more than a month old. Your handwriting for sure. You never told anyone you were sick because they wouldn't listen. Just like back then. You knew your time was limited, so you chose to chase one last try at the train by the old tracks. You sent me letters so I'd come back and find your writings, so I keep the stories alive, at least in my head. You were sorry you had to go, but you knew I'd catch you for one last goodbye. It's been a few weeks since then. I quietly moved your stuff into storage near where I live in my city apartment. No missing persons case was ever filed, but I doubt the force would send anyone to a sleepy place like that. I plan to publish your stories under your name in a book in the future when I have time. The world should at least know you existed, that you tried, and I saved the other slip of paper on that letter. A hastily scrawled train ticket on old parchment. No date or stamp, but it has my name and an official-looking signature. I'll see you one day, old friend. There better be good coffee on that train. We have a lot to catch up on.